Hey guys, back to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So we're back with the patch review for patch 3.5, and I'm recording this now like an hour before the patch releases, so hopefully we can get it out real quickly so you guys can see the video right as the patch releases. But anyways, this is obviously going to be a huge patch because it's the 3.4 to 3.5, so it's going to be a huge patch, and as you guys can see, there's a lot of content, so we're going to try to cover the stuff as fast as we can. So that means I'm not going to go into things too much detail. Not this video is going to be over an hour, which we don't want, of course. So we're just going to try to cover everything in as timely a manner as possible, but of course with the content still there. So first up, we're going to talk about the new champions. We got Aatrox in the top lane, who is pretty much a life-stealing Juggernaut, and in PC is probably one of the best top laners, if not the best top laner now. So it's really interesting how he will translate into Wild Rift. I think he's probably going to be really strong is my prediction, and same goes for Kayn. I think he's going to be really strong too. He is a very fast farming jungler who can of course switch between his choose between his shadow assassin or his like tanky fighter, which is Rast form. And I used to play Kayn on the PC last time, so I'm pretty excited for him coming out as well. Suddenly all my old jungle mains like Warwick and Kayn are releasing to the game, which I'm really happy about. And yeah, so they're pretty much going to release on the moment the patch releases. And next up, new features is like a new gallery skin set. We're not going to cover that too much. Next we have one for all, which is pretty much your whole team playing the same champion. It's really nice for fun kind of game mode. And they have more player behavior features, so really not too much to talk about here, but just really briefly. First up, there's a new penalty type, which basically causes people who infringe and do basically like AFK or like int or whatnot. Basically, they're gonna have to have a longer queue timer, which is gonna, of course, at the end of the day, discourage such bad behavior. And next up, we have a new feature, the avoid list. So basically, in 1 week, you have 3 people you can add to your avoid list after the ranked match. So for example, if this guy, was inting down your game, or like was a jungler who just AFK farmed and refused to come to objectives, that kind of thing, you can't put them on the avoid list. It only lasts for 1 week though, and basically it is exactly what it sounds like. If they're on your avoid list, you cannot match up with them on the same team within that week. But it does reset every week, so you can find them again the next week. Okay, so next thing, remake vote will automatically trigger now. Apparently sometimes people miss out on remake votes. Now this doesn't actually happen to me, because when I have an AFK on my team, I'm just waiting to trigger the remake vote. But apparently some people miss out on the remake vote, or they're not quite sure how it works, and as a result they don't manage to remake the game. So now it will basically just auto trigger. So when the timing hits, the remake vote is going to come out automatically at the top, I assume. And yeah, so it's pretty much a lot easier, better system. They're also removing all chat. Now, of course, we did have that huge debate on League PC about all chat being removed way back when, but personally, I feel that while all chat on Wild Rift is a lot of a lesser thing, and chat in Wild Rift is a lot of a lesser thing in general as well. Personally, I almost never use all chat. I have all chat on, but I don't really chat to the enemy team. The enemy team doesn't really chat to me as well, so I honestly think removing all chat is not going to be too huge of a deal in Wild Rift, but we'll have to see if there's any kind of backlash against it. So next up is a really interesting one. It's positional preference rewards. So basically, what this whole paragraph is trying to say is, at certain times of the day, there is a lack of a player on a certain role. So for example, let's say at night, they are having everyone queue as top, mid, ADC and support, and they're lacking junglers. So when they're lacking junglers, they will pop up a mission to ask people to queue in jungle. And if they queue in jungle, they will get 40 points, rank 42, or in legendary queue, they'll get 4 legendary points just for queuing as that role. So if you are already like a jungle main or something like that, I believe you're still gonna get the bonus anyways. And if you queue as the role that is needed, you're guaranteed to get the role. Obviously because they need people in that role. That's why it's lacking, and that's why this mission appears in the first place. So I think this is a pretty interesting addition, because will some people decide to queue for roles they're not good at just to get like the 40 energy. Because don't forget, 40 energy is a lot. Like, getting an S gives you 50 energy, or rather rank 42. I'm not sure why they call it hextech energy, but getting an S gives you 50 fortitude, and getting an A gives you 30. So this is like literally the middle ground between getting an A and an S, in my opinion, which is basically means you gotta play like better than 85% of the players at your rank, and you're getting this for free for clearing queuing for a role. Of course, getting that win, that mark is way more important than getting fortitude, but I do think this will attract people to queue in the roles that Riot wants you to, and because of that, less people are going to get autofilled, which is going to be better for the community overall. The only concern is when the people willingly queue for the roles they're not good at, or then it's not their main role. That is pretty much going to be as good as getting autofilled, except they get extra like fortitude or points. So I'm not too sure how the system will go, but we'll just have to see. Next wild pass for Jin will release when the patch releases. Of course, I'm really excited for that as well. Jin is one of my favorite champions, and I am a Jin main, so we're gonna probably see the skin on the channel sooner or later. But of course, Jin isn't a really good champion at the moment, unfortunately. So Darkin event is releasing when the patch releases, of course, with Kayn and Aatrox. And there is a new gacha event with Crystal Rose, similar to the Supreme Cells event, where you can gacha for Akali, Riven, and Vi's Crystal Rose skin, but you can also get tokens, and these tokens can be used to exchange the skin. So honestly, if you ask me, I haven't actually gacha anything in Wild Rift, but if I look at how the event is done, I wouldn't say I like gacha, but I would say that this is a really good way to do gacha, where you have a guaranteed chance to get Akali, Riven, and Vi. If you are unlucky and can't get it directly, you can exchange it through tokens, and the tokens are not extremely unreasonable amounts of tokens, in my opinion. At least for like a gacha compared to like other games gachas, in my opinion, I think it's still fine. But of course, gachaing for a skin is a lot more expensive than outright buying it, so that kind of sucks. And next up, we're gonna go on to champion changes. So we're gonna kind of blast through these relatively quickly. First up, we have Ezreal. Sorry about that. Getting a 10 damage buff on his Mystic Shot at all ranks. Now, I already feel Ezreal is really, really strong at the moment, so I'm not too sure why he's getting buffed on his Q. But apparently they thought it was weak early game. It is kind of weak early game, but Ezreal is not meant to be strong early game in the first place. So Ezreal gonna get even better. Irelia, her Blade Surge no longer follows flashes and similar effects, so I'm assuming that means dashes. Now this kind of sucks, because does this mean that, for example, if I'm Lucian, I dash across the Dragon Pit wall and Irelia Qs, she won't make it over the Dragon Pit wall, and she'll be on the other side and can't reach me anymore? Now, I love this change as someone playing against an Irelia, but as an Irelia player, this completely sucks. Like, if you're an Irelia player, imagine your dash doesn't follow like enemy dashes anymore. It kind of really is, like, it kind of really sucks, because the moment Irelia goes in, all you gotta do is dash away, flash away, and she can't close the gap because she only has that one dash. So I don't know about this, and this looks like a huge nerf to me. Now Janna is getting a little bit of a nerf on her Q as well as her W. W movement speed getting hit by just like 2 points to 2 to 3% at majority of ranks, and her Q is getting the base stats nerfed by 5 per second charge. So this is gonna be like, depending on how long you charge it, like 5 to 15 kind of range, which isn't too huge. I think overall these changes shouldn't affect her too much. Kassadin, base health is going up by 30 to give him a better laning phase, which he definitely struggles with laning phase, but with people taking fleet footwork and just like camping, I'm not camping, but hugging tower, Kassadin hasn't really had too much of a problem surviving laning phase, but the huge change here is Force Pulse. Instead of getting 60% damage amplification after 6 spells are cast nearby, is now only 40%, which is beautiful, because Kassadin still does way too much damage. I love this change. Lux, getting a pretty interesting change. They're kind of like redistributing her power budget. So her shield base numbers are actually going up, but their AP ratios are going down. So they're trying to kick Lux out of the mid lane and put her back into the support role. But the interesting thing is that majority of Lux supports builds full AP anyways. So they want Lux to be in the support role and build support items like Ardent Sensor and Staff of Flowing Water instead of building like Luden's Echo and Rabadon's Death Cap. Now, this to me is pretty interesting because, as I said, most Lux build AP whichever role you play anyways. I feel like this is a nerf to Lux overall. But maybe the support build will start cropping up. But I take this as a nerf. This is obviously a nerf. It's 10% AP ratio nerf to her ultimate. So overall, Lux, a lot less burst on the ultimate and should be like a smaller shield on both the going out as well as the return based on these numbers. So it's overall nerf to Lux. Rakan is getting a sort of a adjustment where last time his Q used to increase range by 100 on each level up. But now they're fixing it at 800, which is his rank 2 Q's range previously. Although I think this is still overall a good thing because you generally max your Q last as Rakan. So you're going to be stuck at 700 range for a majority of the match anyway. So getting the extra 100 range for like the first 10-15 minutes is actually going to be a real good thing. So I think overall this is a fair change. Base damage is going up by 10 at all ranks as well. So just a little minor damage increase should help Rakan out a little bit. Especially the range increase going to help him out quite a bit. Now Senna, her last embrace, which is her W, the one that roots people, damage is actually going up by quite a bit. It's going up by 20 at base rank, and at max rank it's going up by 35. So more damage for Senna again. Apparently Senna was at some point overperforming, and now she's underperforming because she has gotten buffs for the past like couple of patches. So aside from that, her Curse of the Black Mist, her E cooldown is also being reduced by 4 seconds at all ranks, so you can use it more often, which is great. Of course, for Senna players, so this should be a good nerf. Good buff. Sorry for her. Seraphine base mana regen is going up by 4. Very minor change, barely gonna affect anything. But a huge buff I really wanted to point out is Shen. So Shen, now when he uses his Q, he will apply bonus damage at 50% effect to enemies around him. So splash damage basically. So this has two ways it's significant. The first thing is, in fights, if enemies are grouped out, he can actually deal AoE damage, which I feel this is the lesser important one. I feel that the more important one is this is going to give him pushing power. So traditionally in League PC, Shen is played as a split pusher. So what you normally do is you split push towers, push minions, and when your team needs you ult. And this sometimes causes one enemy who is responding to your split push to not be in the fight. So it's going to be a 5v4. However, in Wild Rift, his pushing is way too slow. So he really doesn't push fast enough because his wave clear is horrible. And Sunfire Cape has been getting consistently nerfed to a point where it doesn't really help you if your wave clear all that much anyway. So this might actually make Shen good. This is a change to look out for. It's a pretty big change. Something interesting, by the way, guys, is they normally order this alphabetically, if you guys notice. But for some reason, Ziggs comes before Vex and Yone. I'm not sure what happened there. But anyways, next we're going to look at Ziggs. His base mana is going up, and his base mana regen is going up. Basically, it's just going to help him in general, because he runs out of mana pretty quickly, just spamming your bombs. So it's just a nice buff for Ziggs. Vex now getting a nerf, but it's a really minor one. As you guys know, they normally like to start off small, and then they're going to scale up from there. So cooldown on her E is increased by 1 second, and the mana cost by 10. I think it's barely gonna matter, honestly. Yone getting his next round of nerfs. His W damage is getting reduced by 10 at all ranks, and at base rank this is actually quite a bit because getting cut in half from 20 to 10, and you max your Spirit Cleave as the last one, so you're gonna get stuck at 10 damage for quite a while. So this is actually a pretty significant nerf in my opinion. And his Soul Unbound, which is his E, the cooldown is getting increased at later ranks, so you can't use it as often. So overall, good step in the right direction for Yone. Still think he's probably going to be strong, though don't think this one thing is enough to make him weak. So these are technically two buffs as well, but they chose to group them together in this category. Basically, Caitlyn's Q and Xayah's Q cast speed is going to scale with attack speed, so we're going to launch it faster, which kind of does make sense. Xayah is really important because you want to get the feathers out, but Caitlyn, when you get to a certain point of the game, you literally do more DPS just standing still auto attacking than you do casting Q in between. So I think this is trying to resolve that issue, and encourage you to cast Q in between. So next up, really interesting change is when Tryndamere, Yasuo, and Yone exceed 100% crit, they will actually convert 1% crit chance into 0.8 attack damage. Now this basically means one crit item is 25% crit chance, so they will get 20 attack damage from that item. So now the good thing about this is, as they mentioned here, for example, Yasuo and Yone go for Charge Blade and IE as their first two crit items. This will actually allow them to pick up something like a Bloodthirster later on in the game. So Bloodthirster, instead of giving them 25% crit, is going to give them an extra 20 attack damage on top of the attack damage it already gives. Now, I think this is a good change in a sense that they at least have the option to build these items. However, I still feel that building extra crit items after the first two is not a good idea, because at the end of the day, crit items are really expensive, and you're paying a crit item's price and getting less than what you paid for, because getting that attack damage conversion really isn't a lot of attack damage. So you're getting less than you paid for, in my opinion. So I don't think that this is... I think that it's good that they have the option to do this, but I don't think that you should be doing it too much. So I'm not going to be covering the ARAM changes. I'm not going to be covering the Earth changes, but I'm going to be pulling down the tab so you guys can see what those changes are, should you be interested. So next up, we got 3 new items into the game. First item, Horizon Focus. 2800 gold, pretty cheap item. 80 AP, 50 health, 15 haste. Pretty standard AP item stats. Very similar, or actually I think it's the same as Riftmaker. So here is the interesting passive. When a non-targeted ability, so I'm assuming non-targeted ability means abilities you have to aim. So I'm assuming a targeted ability is something like Nautilus's Ultimate, where you have to point and click, and a non-targeted ability is something like Nautilus Hook, which you actually have to aim. So when a non-targeted ability hits an enemy champion at least 500 range away, it applies 1 stack, and when you immobilize a champion, it adds 2 stacks. So the stacks last for 5 seconds, and when you reach 3 stacks, you will consume the stacks to deal 80 plus 20% bonus AP magic damage and apply another stack. So basically, this works really well for like mages who basically throw long range CC. So immediately, first mage that comes to mind is Lux. So if you hit a Lux Q, you're gonna instantly pop it, because if you hit them from far away enough, you're gonna get the 1 stack from here, and when you immobilize them, you're gonna get 2 stacks. So that instantly brings it to 3 stacks and pops the Horizon Focus. So immediately, I'm just thinking of Lux. And on Lux, when you pop it, you get another 1 stack. You hit your E ult, that gives you another 2 more stacks, and it pops it again. So I'm thinking of Lux when I'm thinking of the Horizon Focus, but of course a lot of other champions can use it as well. Anybody with like long range sort of CC is going to be really good with this item. Next up, we got Lord Dominic's Regard, which is of course the item I'm really excited for as an ADC. Costs 3100 gold, 200 less than Maul Reminder, and it gives you 35 AD, which is pretty low, and 25% crit chance. But the thing you really want here is the crit chance. So a lot of ADC builds are really awkward because you're forced to get a penetration item, but and that basically delays your next crit item, or just makes it such that you can't get 4 crit items. So getting the LDR allows you to actually get a crit item that gives you armor penetration, which is really, really good. And here, of course, your first attack on enemy champion after being out of combat has 80% increased attack speed. Now this is, I don't think is too important. The main important part is the fact that it's a crit item with the Last Whisper passive. So now it's going to be an actual competition between LDR, Maul Reminder, and Sorella's Grudge. Now, of course, not every champion wants to take LDR. Like, for example, Ezreal is not going to be building the LDR. But we're going to see how this affects ADC builds. I think likely, like, majority of ADC builds are going to incorporate a LDR into it. And next up, we got the Awakened Soul Stealer, which has been reworked. So this was the one that used to lower your ult cooldown when you get takedowns, but now what it does is it became like sort of a I don't know, it sort of became like a Katarina passive. So you do get the Prophet's Pendant out of it though, so it's pretty good build path for assassins. So it gives you 65 AP, 20 haste, and 150 health, and 15 magic penetration as well. So new passive Soul Flare, take downs on enemy champions within 3 seconds of dealing damage to them, reduce the remaining cooldown of your abilities, including your ultimate, by 20 seconds. Now, at first, the first thought I had was Katarina and Akali, but I honestly don't think this is going to be a really good item on Katarina because you already get a full reset on all your abilities from your own passive, and getting 20% alt cooldown reduction on Katarina isn't very important. So the next champion I'm thinking of is Akali. So Akali, getting that cooldown reduction on all her abilities is gonna be pretty huge. So basically, this is like for AP assassins, which there are honestly not like a lot of. So maybe like Akali, maybe like Echo, I guess. So yeah, this is basically gonna be a new kind of assassin, AP assassin kind of item. And Sunderer getting an AD and haste buff of 5 because apparently it's been a bit lagging behind Triforce a little bit. Nice buff to Sunderer. Now Morello is a pretty huge one. So Morello's cost is now only 2,500. So you of course still build from Oblivion Orb, but now you build from Fiendish Codex instead of the Prophet's Pendant. And as a result, you no longer get health and magic penetration. Instead, you get ability power and ability haste. Now this is actually really good for enchanter supports because it's a really cheap item now. You get a decent amount of AP, you get a decent amount of, a good amount actually of ability haste, and you still get the grievous wounds. So it may not be a case anymore where you leave this item for last, especially on enchanter supports. You might want to actually build this full item earlier because it's actually really low cost now, which is really good actually. You're almost getting 100 gold cost decrease. Yeah, apparently it's not attractive of a buy enough. I mean, I guess now with a lot of other items like Serpent's Fang and Edge of Night, you're almost getting a lot less popular. Okay, so now new runes. So first change is champion being replaced by sudden impact. Sudden impact is whenever you exit stealth, use a dash, leap, blink, or teleport effect. You will get 10 armor and 10 magic penetration for 3 seconds. So this is not adaptive, by the way. This is, you get both. So for hybrid champions, this actually works. So for example, on Yone, Yone has like a dash on his Q, he has a dash on his E, he has a dash on his ult. He does both AD and AP. He's gonna get both armor pen and magic pen. It's not either or, it's both. So it's gonna work better on a champion like him. So of course, basically this is pretty self-explanatory. You mainly want to use this on champions with a lot of dashes, like maybe champions like Vayne, champions like Yone, those type of champions, Riven, all these champions. It's pretty straightforward. This rune. Now Pathfinder is getting a really interesting change. So they're making it such that it works better on like mid or support champions who want to roam, not just for junglers. So now you gain 20% move speed in the river, and in the river while out of combat, you will restore a little bit of missing health or missing mana every second, and you will gain an additional 10 bonus movement speed. So basically, when you are roaming through the river, like between the lanes, you will get like 30% movement speed as well as restoring a little bit of health or mana. I think this is actually a really good rune. It's going to be a really good rune now, and it's going to be really amazing for mid and support champions. Now the issue is, I don't know if the old effect is still there because it says new effect, but I'm not sure if the old effect is still there because I don't think the old effect is there anymore. If the old effect isn't there, it's not gonna be so good for junglers anymore because junglers use it in the actual jungle, like not only the river but like the buff area, the small camps area, to get around the map faster. And if it doesn't have that effect anymore, it's kind of a nerf to Pathfinders on junglers overall, in my opinion. So yeah. Next up, we got Phase Rush. So Phase Rush, it basically grants you the same movement speed, but instead of giving you 75% slow resistance, which honestly wasn't very helpful at all, it now gives you 10 ability haste and reduces your current ability cooldowns by 20%. Now, I think that this is a way better of an effect, of course, but I'm not too sure if people actually take Phase Rush, because the main issue with Phase Rush is how it doesn't actually give you any combat stats, but now it actually gives you ability haste and reduces your ability cooldowns by 20%. So I'm thinking whether like on someone like a Oriana or someone like a Darius or someone like a Graves, like will this actually be useful now? Maybe. We'll have to test it out and we'll have to see. Alright, so yeah. Next up, Brutal getting a pretty huge damage increase because no one really picks Brutal ever since they did that change that it only works to champions and no longer only works on champions and only works on basic attacks. Doesn't work on abilities, doesn't work on jungle monsters. No one takes Brutal anymore. So getting a pretty huge buff. Electrocute now scales into the game, so it's not going to be fixed 20 seconds cooldown anymore. In later stages, it's going to scale all the way down to 13 seconds. It's of course going to be way better for electrocute users because in the later stages of the game you can proc it more often, more damage. Great. Okay, so Scorch cooldown is going down by 2 seconds and damage is going up by like 4 at all ranks. But the main issue with Scorch is that it's a laning phase focused rune and you generally don't get a lot of value out of Scorch in the later stages of the game, so I don't think it's a very popular option at the moment. And yeah, don't think this will fix that. So next up, Triumph now only works on champions, no longer works on jungle monsters. I didn't actually even know that it worked on jungle monsters, but apparently it did. So I didn't even notice that, but now it only works on champions. So again, nerfing another rune out of the jungle. They tend to do this a lot. Like they did it with Brutal. They're doing it with Triumph, and they did it with a lot of other skills and abilities as well. So Adaptive Carapace is going from 12-12 to 16-16 in terms of resistances, because it really isn't popular because Nullifying Orb is pretty much the better version of Adaptive Carapace majority of the time. Now Bone Plating is getting a huge buff in my opinion. The buff is, instead of triggering after the initial hit, now it triggers on the initial hit and 2 more attacks. So this is pretty huge because sometimes that first attack is the one that deals the huge amount of damage and then you block the attacks after that, which at that point doesn't matter, but you've already taken a lot of damage. So this is gonna be a pretty nice change to Bone Plating in my opinion, because you get a instant free trigger on free block on the triggering attack. So sometimes people play around Bone Plating by triggering the Bone Plating and then stop attacking you until it's over, and then they start using their full combo on you. So now this is going to help out a lot with that because it's going to block the initial hit damage, so you're going to get more value from Bone Plating all of the time. Okay, so this is the pretty huge one. It's the jungle rework, what I like to call the jungle rework. They've changed a lot of things and I'm going to try to make this as easy to understand and in as short of a time as possible because there's way too many changes. So the first thing is Smite now deals a fixed amount of damage to monsters. So at the start of the game, it deals a fixed 600 damage to monsters and doesn't scale with your level anymore. After you smite 3 times, you upgrade it to Chilling Smite. So all these are the same, nothing has actually changed here. The current Smite already has all of these. And Chilling Smite, what it does is now it gives you bonus 800, not bonus, but it deals 800 damage instead of 600, and this 800 is fixed. So it doesn't scale with your level, doesn't go up to 1000 when you're level 15 anymore, stays at 800 all the time. And of course, when you smite a champion, you steal their movement speed for a couple of seconds. And there's no longer challenging smite, so red smite no longer exists, only blue smite now, so you don't have to choose anymore. And yeah, so next up, jungle conservation. It's a new stacking system where every 5 seconds you gain a number of stacks, and when you kill a camp, you will cash in the stacks for 1 gold per stack. So, you will normally gain 6 stacks every 5 seconds, but if your team's goal is lower than the enemy's goal by 10%, or if your goal is less than your ally's goal by 5% or more, you will get 12 instead. So this is to help you. Now I don't actually I like the jungle conservation concept, but I don't like how when your team is behind or when you are behind your allies, you get 12 stacks per stack, because this sort of means that it is trying to allow you to catch up with your allies or trying to help you to catch up with your enemies, but I don't feel that they should be doing that. I feel that they should be you should be punished when you are behind your enemies or behind your allies, because it means you haven't been farming well or you haven't been ganking well. So I think it should be stacks all the time, so it should just be a fair thing for everybody, but they did choose to help out people who are behind by giving them double the amount of stacks and cashing in the stacks, max 150 charges, of course. So this basically means you need to play around ganking and farming. If you're ganking all the time, you're going to have too many stacks, you're going to lose out on a lot of gold. If you're farming all the time, you're cashing in your stacks pretty much all the time, but it also means that you're not making an impact on the map by ganking. So I think overall it's a good change. Now this is a pretty major change. Camp leashing, reducing attack range of several camps that you can't double camp. So if you take a look at like the most common one for Morgana, it's like Grump plus blue buff. Both of them are getting cut in half, so I highly doubt you can double camp anymore. Now this basically reduces the skill level you need for jungle clears, but it basically means that clears will be slower and more uniform across the board. So Morgana used to be one of the best junglers just because of how fast she clears. That no longer will be the case anymore because she cannot double camp anymore, I believe. So they're making changes to jungle monsters. Now there's a huge wall of text here, but I'm gonna only cover what is important. I'm gonna summarize it for you guys. So basically, jungle camps now can go up to level 12. I don't know if you guys even knew jungle camps leveled up, but they can go to level 12 and they will begin to level up every minute after the first 30 seconds of a game. So non-epic monster camps, armor and matrices are reduced to 0. Now this is really huge. This makes jungle clearing very easy because they don't have resistances anymore. They're going to be taking a lot more damage, so clearing is going to be a lot more easy. So next up, health. Basically, the long story cut short of this is that for every camp, their base health is going down, but they're getting more health per level. So this means your first clear will be easier, but your subsequent clears will be harder. This is overall a good change because first clear is the most important clear, so this is overall a buff to the jungle role, I guess. So, respawn cooldown is going up by 5 seconds, barely matters too much. So, non-epic jungle monster goal changes. So, now, this one though is a nerf. So, instead of giving you a fixed amount of gold, it now gives you less gold, less base gold, but gives you 3 gold per level. This means that on your first clear, you're getting a lot less gold because the monster level is going to be a lot lower, therefore you're going to get a lot less gold. So I would assume on your first clear, the jungle camps are going to be all like level 1 or level 2. So you're going to get like, for example, on red, you're going to get like 100 plus 3 or 106 instead of 130. So a lot less gold on your first clear. And of course, this is compensated by the conservation system. So I guess it kind of balances out. Next up, jungle XP changes. This is probably the most huge one. Same deal as the gold. Instead of getting a fixed 2k XP, you're getting 1800 plus 72 per level. So this means on your first clear, you're going to be getting less than 2000 XP. So this will affect your how fast you reach level 5, which is why this is a really huge change for the jungle. So you might need like an additional camp to hit level 5 with these changes. And again, monster attack ranges are getting reduced. Now something really interesting here is they have evolved Red Brambleback and they have evolved Blue Sentinel, but I thought that they are removing it because you see, the evolved thing is removed. So what's happening here? I don't know. By the way, Crux no longer split into the smallest version of the Crux, so clearing Crux is going to be faster as well. So, new buff sharing mechanic. Basically, after 7 minutes, you will be able to share buffs with your allies, which is fine because you generally, like ADCs or mages, won't need buff before 7 minutes anyways. So, the shared buff will only drop if the jungler clears the camp. This is a really important thing because this means you need some coordination. For example, if I'm ADC, I want to take red buff. It's better for my jungler to take red buff so that he can get it and I can get it. But this means that I'm going to have to wait for him to come over and attack the buff and clear it for me so that I can actually get the red buff, which is really annoying to say the least. I think that this is going to create a lot of issues where the ADC takes the buff anyways and like the jungler gets pissed off because we could have shared the buff but the jungler is not around. Or a case where like the jungler clears the buff but the ADC is on the wrong side of the map. So you need to walk all the way across the map to take the buff, in which case it becomes not even worth it anymore. So yeah. So the crest will stay on 45 seconds before disappearing, and you can only take it you can take it by standing there for 2.5 seconds, and you'll only get it if it is done by your jungler. So if your buff gets stolen, obviously it won't drop anything. So yeah, Rift Herald. Next, Rift Herald. The summoning time is reduced from 7.6 to 4 seconds, and the time it takes to hit but the turret is reduced from 2.5 to 1.75 seconds. Now, this is because a lot of times when you get Rift Herald, the enemy team can clear it really quickly before it collides, like by smiting it, by hitting the eye, and by like shoving it away. Like Vayne can condemn the Rift Herald away, and this causes the Rift Herald to be wasted. So this is gonna make Rift Herald more impactful and more important in general. Next up, bounty system. Instead of having an uncapped bounty, you can now only get 1300 bounty maximum. So if you're somehow like 15-0, you're not gonna have a bounty that's larger than 1300 gold. And when someone shuts you down, they can only get 1,000 gold out of that bounty maximum. You can't get all 1300. You can only get up to 1,000, and the remaining bounty will be added to your next bounty. I think overall this is a good change because it punishes the people less for making a single mistake when they're fed. Because sometimes you're really fed, you have such a huge bounty, and you make a mistake and you give over your whole shutdown to someone on the enemy team. This is going to mitigate that by number one, you can't get too huge of a shutdown. Number two, they can't get all of your shutdown. So that is pretty good change in my opinion. Now, champion takedown experience, basically, they're just changing how much experience you get for killing your enemies on like the early levels. Yeah, just take a look for yourself. And finally, at the very end, we got the new skins, we got new accessories, and some new thing here is that when you hit Scar's Bloom into an enemy, you will automatically ping enemy spotted to your team, which could be irritating but is good for map awareness as well. I think overall it's a good change considering a lot of people are not aware of what's happening on the map. This one's also pretty interesting. Added music on recalls for certain skins here, so don't know if there's gonna be exclusive music for like legendary skins or something like that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you guys for watching this video. Hopefully you guys understood all that I covered, and hopefully it was both concise as well as detailed enough for everyone. So thank you guys so much for watching the video, and goodbye.